Con Stathopoulos and Josh Phegan come together in an incredible podcast, Grow, Scale, Master.
An energetic approach to drive progress, master skills, build strengths and put the strategy back into rapid business and personal success.
Backed by real-world experience in rapid scaling to playing the long-term game of business, it's the story of all the lessons learned on the journey to mastery.
Be inspired, renew your energy and chase the future with Grow, Scale, Master.
Con, today we're going to talk about business basics. And I always think about this whenever I'm working with people. I go, hey, at the end of the day, real estate's a very simple game and it's a great sport to play. And you got to think about it as like three very specific buckets. How do you generate your leads?
Yep.
What do you do to win?
Yep.
And how do you sell them?
Perfect.
And in every market, like literally different things might be going. So you might be really good at generating leads and you're great at winning them, but selling's become more difficult.
Yes.
Or selling's really easy, but it's hard in the listing lounge room.
Yep.
Or you're good in the listing lounge room, but you don't get into enough.
Yes.
And so this is about like really understanding. So today we're going to go and have a look at each of these little buckets and have a great conversation on it.
I think the timing is absolutely perfect, particularly leading into this, this interrupted next quarter.
Yeah.
So this is a good one, Josh.
So I think about like generating leads.
Yeah.
So I am like really simple about this. Where does the customer hang out before they need you?
Yep.
What data and relationships do you have? And what's worked for you in the past? So if you're a really good business leader, data-driven decisions. So go and have a look at every single listing that you've won in the last 12 months. How'd you meet the owner? What did you do to bring him to market?
Yes.
And if you think about a database and its flywheel of getting significant growth, most of those people got there because they were buyers.
Yeah.
Inquiry from major real estate websites, people that you met at open for inspections. Very rarely did we go and get a whole heap of cold data.
Yep.
And this is about getting that flywheel spinning. And I just say to agents, hey, here's the formula to success. Get me to 5 opens on a Saturday in a core market with less than 28 days on market.
Perfect.
You just keep working buyers, you keep working sellers. Is generation of leads like that simple just to focus on one flywheel, get it to spin, and then you can add the extras?
It is that simple, but we've made it more complex. And I'll tell you why, because a lot of people, particularly when it comes to generating leads, get prospecting confused with lead generation. They're very, very different. So a letterbox drop and a social media ad is not prospecting. Prospecting is someone that you can connect with face-to-face or over the phone and actually have a conversation, right?
And so this is about like awareness or conversion campaigns.
Yes.
So awareness, we fly the hot air balloon.
That's it.
Now,
shelters, all that sort of stuff.
Hopefully it crashes because then it makes the news, but not with people in it. But that's real awareness.
Okay.
And then,
We'll edit that one out. Edit it out.
But then conversion,
Yeah.
is it like I met 5 people on Saturday, how many people were already going?
So, the very first month that I was in real estate, right? Because I was fascinated by this. Imagine an industry where you get paid to sell a property and you're also meeting your future sellers.
Sure.
It's phenomenal, right?
Yes.
And I remember, I think it was Ben Collier, or it may have been Matt LaHood. I remember one of them just going, just imagine you could only meet one seller for the whole year. How would you behave?
Yeah.
And imagine you only met one buyer. What would you do to make sure that experience was brilliant?
Yeah.
And I kind of think of that and I go, you just reeled off like 5 or 6 different things to be able to generate leads. What about you just master 1 or 2 of them and do them 100% of the time?
So, when I walk into a business, I go, okay, great. So if I sat up across the road and I was competing with you, so you've got a new office opening shortly, and I'm going to start up across the road, you should smash me every day of the week.
Correct.
And not only because you're great at what you do, but also too because you've got past clients, past market appraisals, landlords,
Orphan
tons of
data,
relationships. You've got all this stuff.
Yeah.
But if you don't use those as your strategic advantage, and all of a sudden it's just you and I competing at open homes.
You win.
Mate, well, together, like we're going to compete pretty well on that. But there's not going to be a lot of differentiation.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's take the biggest thing in industry that's very rarely spoken about, and we got to call it, and maybe because it's more long-term as opposed to immediate gratification, but past clients.
Yep.
So we're now going to say first Friday of every month, we get a list of every person who's ever bought a property from your firm in that month. And all we do is we just call all the past clients.
We did a campaign called Back to the Future.
Yes.
Which was just doing exactly that. Do you know how many appraisals we booked? Because you know what the dialogue is? You know what happens, I think, with past clients, mate? People don't, they get embarrassed. Agents get embarrassed because they've dropped the ball.
Sure.
And so what happens is we call them orphans, right? They've orphaned them and then they don't know what to say. They don't want to go, oh, hey, Josh.
But it's all in your head, man.
I know it is.
Can't you just say, hey, Con, I gave you some respectful distance. How's the house? How are things?
Or by the way, Josh, it's been a while since we last spoke.
Sure.
Mate, how's life? How's things? Reconnect. We did this with an agent in the East, right? Because they had this core reluctance with past clients. We took all their data over the last 10 years and we washed washed it through CoreLogic and we spat out how many had resold within that 10-year period. $3.89 million in GCI. I remember the number. It was 10. It was 11 years ago I did this.
Amazing.
And guess what happened? All they did, and every day they'd walk in and their assistant would give them 10 past clients that they had to call every single day, and then they could start their day, right?
So that then leads us into the conversation. Find out how your business generates leads and go all in on your formula.
Yes.
The second part, what do I do to win?
Yes.
So we've just done a whole series of listing presentation reviews. And one of the key things that I say to people, where is the bit that you have in your listing presentation about selecting an agent?
Yep.
And then when we actually have that, what are the reasons why people go with you?
Yes.
And so you should be really clear about that. Hey, Con, I know you're going to interview lots of people, blue suit, white shirt. They all look the same. But what I've got to ask you is literally, why would people make the decision to use me? And this is what I've found. So customer research and insight, when you actually go to people in the 36 hours after they've signed an agency agreement, hey, did you follow Con on social? Did you already know about him? Why'd you make the decision to use him? If it boiled down into one reason, what would it be? Did some competitors come through? Did they say something that was interesting? If you really thought about it, what do you reckon was the deciding factor in why you went with Con?
That's gold.
Now, that customer research would give you some amazing things, and then it would give you an outcome.
Yeah.
Now, Dean O'Brien, for example, said to me, Josh, we use you because of energy and the way you think, and also too because you give us templates of forms, checklists, visuals, dialogues that we can put into the business. I don't ever forget about that. Every single time I walk on to go and do some work in a business, I think, okay, great. Is my energy good today? Am I thinking today? And do I have a form, a checklist, a visual, or a dialogue that they could walk away with tomorrow that would change everything for them?
Yeah.
And that's like literally find out what your secret sauce is in winning.
It's so interesting you say that, mate, because we've got two great sales managers, Ed and Riley. And I just forgot Riley's name for a second. Sorry, Riley, I love you. No, I'm joking. But you know what we've been doing is we've been contacting every time we sign an agency agreement, we've been contacting the vendor to welcome them to the business and to the family, etc. But we haven't been asking why they chose. Right?
Even on 5 or 6 customers, you would find some incredible insights.
Exactly. But you know what's really interesting is when we lose business, we call them to find out why.
But what a joke.
I know. Why aren't we calling them when we win so we can actually leverage those assets? I love that. That's a piece of gold.
And what I love with agents is that if you want to have an understanding about the social media side, at the point of signing the agency agreement, how many of your vendors were already following you on social?
Yeah, probably none, mate, because social media for real estate is for real estate agents.
But I want to know that.
Yeah, of course you do.
So I can actually see whether or not what you're producing actually lands with the audience.
Yeah,
there's a lot of production, right?
That's right.
Third component, what do you do to actually sell them?
Yeah.
So if you have a look at your best agents inside of your business,
yes,
what you'll work out is that they're very process orientated, right?
Absolutely.
So they have a sale method that they like.
Yep.
They're very clear about vendor paid marketing.
Yes.
They're very clear about pricing strategy.
Yep.
They're really clear about their reporting mechanism.
Absolutely.
And they're very clear about their meetings.
Yeah.
They also have really good quality market knowledge about what's been listed, what's been sold, and what's had a price reduction in the last 24 hours because they're seeing how that market change is going to influence their current campaigns.
Correct.
And they are very clear about, let's not just rely on the marketing to bring the buyers. Let's make sure that we've got a relationship of who the key buyers are inside of market.
Correct.
So if you look at that, what you realize straight away, like what on your best campaigns, what made them the best? Why did they fly? On the campaigns that struggled, why was that? And ultimately, if we can find anything that's consistent, then how do we actually take the consistent behavior that's useful and do more of that? And if we find things that are out of whack, then let's get them into whack.
You know what? That really reminds me when Amit and Ritesh joined us, 4 years ago now. One of their biggest problems was days on market with units in Westmead and Wentworthville. So he'd be like, mate, I'm running 2 open homes a week for 6 to 8 weeks just to get these things sold. And then when you had a look at how much stock was on the market, everyone was behaving in the same way. And so one of the things that we looked at was method of sale. Why do we have it for private treaty? Have we ever thought about auctioning them? No, bro, but that's not going to work because it's not an auction market. Okay. Well, most markets were never auction markets. Have we tried it to see if we could get vendors to adjust expectations or reduce days on market or to give some urgency to buyers? Guess what? Now these guys are the masters of bidder auctions and they get units sold in Westmead and Wenty when there's plenty of other stock on the market within 28 days or less.
So when someone joins a team, hey, Con, I'm going to come and join your team and we're listing and selling houses. Hey, I'm new to real estate. Can you just tell me, how do we generate our leads?
Yeah.
How do we win?
Yeah.
And then how do we sell them?
Yeah.
How many agents do you think have got a one-pager on each of those components?
No, not that many.
But isn't that the bit that you're so it's so difficult to scale people, but yet why don't we try to scale rules?
100%. Well, mate, and this is the perfect time to be coming into the end of the financial year when you're starting to do your business planning is just do that simple exercise. Where did my business come from this year? Work it out. Was it open homes? Was it past clients? Was it, my database? Was it buyers? Whatever it was. And then just really work on that. Experiences that rapidly shaped you.
Con, I was, this story still continues in my brain all the time, but I keep on walking past the side dresser table in my lounge room, and
I saw it just before.
It's the Phegan bungalow.
I saw it.
And I just keep on thinking about Palm Springs.
Yeah.
And, that story, which we've told before, but it's really important is that, what are the little things that you can do that make a really big difference? And this is that whole conversation about thinking differently. And, I was talking to someone today who's got a really interesting Matterport type technology. And what they do is that they come into a house, they press a button, they take a virtual floor plan of the whole house. And then in under a minute, you then have availability to 100 different trades and services who can then provide a quote.
Oh, right.
So if you say, I want to do a repaint of the walls and I want to be in a position that I put in a new kitchen bench.
That's cool.
The kitchen company or the painting company can actually go and do that.
Because they've got all the measurements and everything.
Because everything's done digital.
Yeah.
How phenomenal would that be in a post-sales experience? Hey, you've now just bought the house. If you want to do any renovations and improvements to us, here's a list of all the suppliers.
Amazing.
And you can have immediate quotes done, even from the date of settlement, right the way, so from the date of sale, I should say, to the date of settlement.
Yeah, correct.
And so now you don't need to come back to measure the curtains because it can actually be done for you.
Do you know what it is? I think that when you start looking at it, it's the simplicity, Josh. And I think one thing that's rapidly, shaping me is the experience of we expect good customer service. What about the experience that you provide people? We got the butcher shop at Summer Hill, right? Two fat butchers.
Yes.
Mate, those guys.
Mate, don't say that.
No, that's what they're called.
Oh, right.
No, they're called. So it's a free plug for them. Two fat butchers, right?
Yes.
Awesome suburban local butcher shop.
Yes.
But the experience that they give you, mate, what are you feeling like? How are you going to cook it? Have you thought about this? Hey, we've already got the marinades already pre-done. They've just made it easier. So I would rather go there for the experience and I'm going to get great service and a good quality product. It's exactly the same. Maybe just smile when you're checking people in at an open home rather than looking at your device.
Something that's changing your view.
So, Con, I've been reading this book lately and it's about the founder of DFS, which was Duty Free Stores.
Yeah.
So you might have seen that logo.
Yeah.
And they started out in Hawaii and it's the whole thing. And, long story short, the book's very dramatic. In the first opening chapter, this guy flies into Bermuda and signs away his entire wealth. Back in 1982, he was worth circa 880 million. Wow. So that's a lot of money by today's measurements. And the interesting thing is it goes to talk about his story of how they did it. And, long story short, they were talking about conversations that when they began the business, different wars were on at the time. Right. And so actually they would help sailors who were out on the boats to actually buy cars tax-free. Right. And so by the time they came back from active service, they actually had a car brand new in their driveway, which paid off. Was tax-free. So it was awesome. Yeah. So then they started doing, alcohol and 5 bottles at, through customs and all that sort of stuff. And they just told this whole story about how they'd get all of the Japanese tourists who would come to Hawaii and they'd then take them through and then get them to the DFS store and how that was a major thing. And anyway, it's phenomenal. And he said in this book, he goes, the moment that I realized that the external displays of wealth was becoming an issue was when we were getting up to 2 to 3 kidnap attempts a week on my children.
Oh, what?
And so he said that was at the point where I made the decision to actually pull back and actually don't worry about it. There's a certain amount that I need, but I don't need to be displaying my wealth everywhere I go. And I just thought about that literally, when you think about it, about what goes on in the world, can you just be a great human being and be gracious of whether or not you've made it or not, but still really connect with people in a really powerful way and not have to have those ostentation displays. Wow. And I think that this is a really interesting conversation for you, is that literally you are the experiences that you do. You are what you execute. You are that type of person in the way that you work with everyone, whether or not they can do anything for you or nothing, but most importantly, can you add value to their life? Yeah. And it could be as simple as a smile, the caring touch of a small hug or a light touch on the shoulder during a moment of grief. These are the real moments that absolutely matter. And rather than the ostentatious, that's my new car, my new watch, my new this. It's fine that those things happen, but does it need to be on public display?
No, I totally agree. Those micro moments, right? That's where all the magic happens.
And I was just thinking about this, every single time you do that, you give someone else a reason not to use you. as
Yeah.
opposed to giving them a reason to use you.
Yeah.
And other people's insecurities and doubts and hang-ups could actually be the reasons that people prevent themselves from doing work with you.
Exactly.
So I always think, stay hungry, stay humble. And it's a great little message to really have a great real estate career.